Well, unfairly impacted. That's how Acting Prime Minister and Nationals leader Michael McCormack has described regional Australia, following these drastic border closures to entire states. It's something he's also described as unfair is Twitter's permanent ban on the US President Donald Trump. Now, earlier today, I spoke with former Deputy Prime Minister and Nationals MP Barnaby Joyce. Here's the interview. Well, joining me now from Danglemar is the member for New England, Barnaby Joyce. Barnaby, what do you make of Mr McCormack's comments today?
Look, what Trump did was wrong, okay? Let's call it for what it is. Let's not try and protect the vestige of a totem and make excuses for every person within that totem and the crazy things they do. But as well as Trump saying crazy things on Twitter, there's a heap of people from the left who say crazy things on Twitter. So if we're going to deal with this, let's not deal with one side of it. Let's deal with both sides of it. Let's deal with Mr. Tony Windsor and all the garbage, absolute filth and garbage that he says about me. We're going to kick him off Twitter. I hope they are. And whilst we're at it, I've got a few others we can add to the list which we should be kicking off Twitter.
Can I go back to something else that Michael McCormack said? I mean, we could talk about Twitter and the evils of it and the horrors of it forever. But, you know, Mr McCormack and a lot of the Nationals MPs have been out there talking about how these lockdowns and border restrictions have disproportionately affected regional areas. I mean, what's your take on that? Surely you must be agreeing with that.
Oh, on that issue, I agree with him, right? Okay, borders should be, this virus, which is obviously a massive concern, but it should be managed on epidemiological basis, not on state boundary basis, because that's crazy. It's an arbitrary line on the map designed by a pre-1901 surveyor. He jumped out of a boat and said, you know, hallelujah, here's South Australia. Hallelujah, there's Victoria. This is another line. That's called Queensland. It's arbitrary and kind of ridiculous. And to say, well, they're the lines we're going to use for determining how we manage a virus. I mean, the virus has got a degree in history, has it? It knows where to stop. It knows, you know, which side of the line it can go on and which side it can't. We should be testing and saying, okay, there's no virus in Roma. Okay, there's no virus in Whyalla, so people from Whyalla can go to Roma because it's irrelevant. You know, there's nil chance either direction that they're going to get the virus. And if someone in New England has got the virus and someone then New England should be, you know, treated differently to someone in Dubbo who maybe hasn't. You know, let's deal with it on epidemiological basis, not on this sort of arbitrary, oh gosh, we've got a couple of people at North Narrabeen who've got the virus, therefore we're going to deal with the whole of New South Wales as if they got the virus. It's just absurd to say, look, someone in Jakarta's got the virus, so we're going to shut down.
The problem we've got, though, is that, you know, state premiers are, I think all of them are city dwellers. They don't seem to care too much about what happens in the regions in many instances. You've got people who are really running the states are bureaucrats who are based principally in metropolitan areas. And so in South Australia, for example, they gave us a 3-day or a 6-day lockdown across the whole state because there were 17 people in a suburb in South Australia, in Adelaide, and yet there are people that were locked up in their homes where there hadn't been a case of coronavirus ever. And this is destroying or damaging regional communities who disproportionately contribute to our national wealth. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, well, I think we're on the same page, aren't we? I mean, what I'm saying is the epidemiological, that is the aspects of the virus should be the realities and the reason behind the decisions that are made. So if there is a suburb in Adelaide that has this virus, then we should be dealing with that on that epidemiological basis. But to somehow say that it is now also related to Mount Gambier is ridiculous. And what we've also got, as you know, is we've got a hell of a problem coming our way, Cory. We can't get this fruit off the vine. We can't get the vegetables out of the paddock. We haven't got the backpackers here. As well as getting every other piece of equipment from China, we're going to start having to get our food out off China if we go down this path. We've got to be able to get the labour force in. They've got to do the job. Let's be quite honest. There are a lot of Australians out there who are not unemployed. They're bone lazy and they just don't want to do the work. And we've all got examples of that. A lot of Australians are very hard workers. Most Australians, a vast majority of Australians, very hard workers. Small minority, bone lazy. Doesn't matter. They wouldn't work in an iron lung. They just don't want to do the job, right? So that means on these jobs we've got to bring the people in. Otherwise, they just don't get done.
Well, your agriculture minister, I think David Littleproud, he suggested last week that 22,000 workers needed to come in. And we reported here on this program and discussed it at length that already
100.
Yeah, well, he mentioned a figure of 22,000.
Way below. Way below.
$39 million of berries and vegetables have already gone to waste because they can't be harvested off the farms because we haven't got the labour. It's an appalling indictment on where we're at, quite frankly, as a nation.
And they're the meals at the pub that don't get served as counter lunches, and they're the clothes in the shop that don't get sold, and they're the bits and pieces in the high street of the regional towns where the money's not, because these people, they're not monastic. They actually do spend money. They come into town and spend money, and the money circulates around. But I think we're way short when we start talking about 20,000 people short. Honest to God, I think you're looking more at 80,000 people short, and that's. They're the numbers that we're looking at, and they're all disappearing back to Berlin and Stockholm and wherever they come from, back to Dublin and Dublin and Dublin and Dublin and Dublin, and we need these people here because the fellas we've got, they just don't want to do the job.
Well, that's an appalling indictment about what's happening in this country. We've got hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people on job seeker, job keeper, and they're not prepared to get out there and do critical work for the well-being of all our nations and the disproportionate wealth generation that happens in our regional areas. Barnaby, Joyce, thanks so much for taking time out of your day, all the way from Danglemar, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Danglemar, Aboriginal word means centre of the universe.
That's wherever you are, Barnaby. Thanks as always.